Welcome to the Gil Hodges podcast. I'm Gil Hodges, your host, and I want to welcome to this week's episode of the podcast, Embracing Love and Letting Go, a journey of faith and joy. And today, who we have with us, it's my pleasure to host the inspiring Catherine Toon. Catherine is a former board-certified internal medicine MD, but she transitioned from her medical career to wholeheartedly pursue God's call in her life. She now serves in various capacities, including prayer and healing and prophetic coaching and teaching and many other things. She's got her own podcast, does her own show, and has written several books that we'll talk about in the show. Now, in this episode, though, it's really fantastic to be able to listen to Catherine. In this episode, Catherine shares her deep insights into the transformative power of God's love and how it alters our approach to life's hurdles. We delve into the nature of God's love as transformative, self-sacrificing, and co-serving, emphasizing how perfect love casts out all fear. Our discussions explore the dynamics of fear versus love, the importance of letting go of material desires, and the misconceptions that we have about God and His wrath. Catherine provides valuable perspectives on realizing God's omnipotence, His love, and embracing one's identity and purpose beyond social pressures. We also highlight some of the significances of spiritual growth, the power of group discussions in achieving personal revelation, and the journey towards contentment and joy. Catherine's unconventional way of introducing people to God's love has transformed the lives of thousands. And she is the founder of Imprint LLC and Catherine Toon Ministries, both dedicated to restoring wholeness, revealing identity, and releasing God's destiny in you. So join us for this episode. It's fantastic. The conversation, it encourages you to live a life marked by love, free from fear and societal constraints. So you won't want to miss this enlightening and uplifting episode. So here's Catherine. Well, welcome, Catherine, to the show. I so appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. I know you've got some work you're doing on a book, and like to talk about that as well as just kind of catch up. And before we do all that, why don't you share a little bit about who you are, because not everybody may know exactly what your background is and what you're doing today. So please go
Absolutely.
ahead and
Well,
do
thank
that.
you so much. It's so fun to be here, Gil. It's so fun to be back. So that's always a bonus when someone invites you back.
Yeah. Glad to have
Yes.
you back.
Yeah, that's delightful. So I'm Catherine Toon, uh, retired physician. Really don't do that anymore. Called into ministry. And that usually looks, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and I'm a coach. So those are the major things. I also have my own podcast that you have been on, and I hope you come back sometime. And those are sort of the high level things that I do. I love teaching. I love engaging. I love talking with other people and finding out what their hot buttons are, and just talking about
Mm-hmm.
life and God and all the happy things, and then the challenges and how we're navigating.
Yeah.
And that is all good. But married 29 years, mother of three, and love that. I'm
Yeah.
very, very blessed and have the challenges that a lot of you have. So
Yeah. Yeah. We were just talking about challenges before coming on, but so, yeah, well, let's see. We both are very big with the love of God and getting that out there to where people really get a paradigm shift. I mean, there's a lot of people that still live in fear.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's so sad when there's so
Yes.
many people that are sharing a new message these days. And you're one of them. And I love sharing the message of God's love, that it can be so much more, I guess, I want to use the word enlightening, but I don't want people to get the wrong interpretation of that. But it really does cause us to lighten up,
It,
on throughout our life,
it
touches every
absolutely.
part of our life. Yeah. So why don't you just share a little bit about your perspective on God's love and how it affects people?
Yes, thank you. Such a hot button, and I also want to I encourage us. All these trigger words when we say enlightening, and then we think New Age. No, that was actually a God concept. It's
Yeah.
actually in the Bible, so we can just take
Mhm.
that concept and use it in a way that's God honoring. And I absolutely want to be enlightened. I just want to make sure that it's the source of Christ, who is light, life, truth, and love.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that brings us to the place of what about love? And so love is actually a person. He's a person of Christ, Father, Son, and Spirit.
Mhm.
They're all love. That is actually an identity. That's who God is, not just what he does. And because he is the person of love, he loves. And that is other centered, that's self sacrificial, and that's co suffering. So, where God meets us where we're at as the person of love, he's able to engage us in every place that needs engagement, which is ultimately what salvation is all about. But it's the person of love who's always been love, who's always been wild with you, who's wild with us when we know him, is wild with us when we don't know him. He's just wild about us. But a revelation of that, an enlightening of the eyes of our understanding of that is transformational. And because love is a person, he never fails. Ultimately, he's into the long game. So love is the long game. In the short term, it can be very bumpy. And sometimes you really ask God, are you there? What are you doing? All of that. And that's just the subjective experience that we have versus the objective experience of being
Mhm.
completely loved. And as you were saying, that perfect love casts out fear. They cannot operate in the same space. That's actually the antithesis. Fear is the antithesis of love. And so when we're struggling with fear, anxiety, and all the different manifestations of fear, we are needing a revelation, a deeper revelation of God as the person of love who's omnipresent, who always has a solution where we're completely stymied, and is with us even when in our suffering. Jesus said, in this world you will have tribulation, and tribulation
Yeah.
is a crushing. So this is not a bad hair day, although we may have those too. But but we will have crushing issues, but he's
Yeah.
with us in the crushing to redeem it and bring out something. He said, cheer up, I've overcome the world. So there's an overcoming, there's a transcendent value
Mhm.
as we're connecting with this person that we're one with, that is about the process of redeeming all things and bringing all things back to himself, the Greek apokatastasis. So just a little segue. There's a lot of different directions we can go, but we can launch with that.
And that I love that because, the thing is, people need to hear it in different language. I share it a lot. People hear it from me. They may hear it from other people, but every one of us that are sharing this message have a little bit different language that we use, and it's important to get that out there because you're going to touch people I can't touch, and
Mhm.
vice versa. So it's good, it's powerful. And the thing is, I had Paul Young on last week, and we talked about having, the cat out of the bag. It's like all through history, this message of God's love has come up,
Yeah.
but it's generally been kind of squashed by the powers that be that wanted to kind of draw it back to where it was in the fear-based gospel.
Mhm.
Um, but yet now with the internet, it's like the cat is out of the bag and it's not going back in. And this message is catching on like wildfire. And I love it.
And it's life-giving, and you see the fruit of it. When you
Mhm.
see the fruit of love, which is the fruit of God, the fruit of the Spirit, it's all goodness, it's all life, light, and truth. And there is freedom in it. So it bears the marks of what people are truly needing and wanting, where God can meet them where they live, and
Yeah.
transforming them in the process into the image and likeness of God. So all of
Amen.
that, and he never fails, right? So I mean, ultimately, where it's not worked out yet, God's not done yet.
Right.
And you know so we have to get, the word says that we're to look not at the things which are seen, but the things that are unseen. Now, we're not ignoring the seen things. We're in the dirty here and now, all of
Mhm.
that. But there's something transcendent when we connect with God as who he is, and that unveils us from glory to glory to glory in his image. So we're not just overcoming the situations, we're actually being conformed into the image of God as we're seeing
Amen.
him rightly and tracking with him rightly.
Amen. Amen. So, all right, you've got is it a new book or are you rewriting? Tell me what's going on with your writing right now.
Right. So it's an expanded and revised edition of my original book, Marked by Love, which was transformational. Well, that'll still be out on the market because not everybody wants an expanded version, but it's significantly expanded. It's about 100 more pages.
Hmm.
And that's actually coming out tomorrow, on the 15th, assuming all goes well.
All right. All right. Coming out on Amazon?
15th on Amazon. Absolutely. And it is such a labor of love. When I burped out the first version, it was basically 20 years of encounters and experience that's still in the new thing. And then I really felt like because I had grown, there was a bunch of expansion that needed, because a lot of people, and I assume they do this with you. You talk about God as love, or God being loving, however you want to verbiage that. And then you run into but what about God's wrath? What about the afterlife? What about judgment? What is God saving? What are we saved from? What are we saved to? What does that all mean? And
Yeah.
how can we cohesively look at that with God always being who he is, and not throw out the Bible because that's a gift, but grapple with it in a way that's life giving,
Hmm.
um, and understand God so that we see him as he is. Because when we see God as he is, he turns around and mirrors us back to himself, but to
Hmm.
us, so that we can start to see him as he really is. And we are literally being conformed from glory to glory to glory. That's part of the transfiguration process, the transformational process that God always is about. So and it's not because as his kids we're so fallen and whatever, like God has to clean us up just to tolerate us. No, it's because we're so gorgeous and powerful and beautiful in the image and likeness of
Yeah.
God, that leaving us less than who we are is not worthy of who we are. So this is a labor of love of his, because we are all that, because we are our original design is so good and holy and perfect and beautiful and powerful in his image, that's a restoration project, so to speak. And that's a part of the salvific work that God is relentless at, because he adores us as his kids.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and there are those people with the buts. It's like God is love, but
Mhm. Mhm.
someone sent me cartoon just recently, and it was three figures, kind of, not necessarily humanoid figures, but they were in a hospital, and this person is on a bed, and one of the figures turns to the person on the bed and says, "Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to remove your butt." And beside the person on the gurney is a sign. It says, "God is love, but."
Oh,
So yeah,
specific. We
we
need a butt
we
removal.
yes, we do, we really do, because it is, that's my big thing. Is I like to ask at different meetings, just is God all powerful? In fact, I got a conversation going right now on my Facebook that I'm about to add the second question, because I just kind of baiting people, I guess, but I'm like, is God all powerful? And it's like
What
100%,
what's
pretty
people to
much.
think? Yes.
Yeah, it's like 100%. Everybody's yes, yes, yes. So my
Mhm.
next question is going to be, can God save everybody? And I can guarantee you there's going to be a portion of them that are going to say, well, no. And oftentimes the reason they say no is because they say, well, people have choice.
Mhm.
So that's my area. That's what I'm like,
I love
I'm all
that,
over
and
that.
you're like, choice, hot button right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's just like, yeah, we do have choice. And that choice that he has given us actually gives us that right and ability to resist him forever.
Mhm.
But will we? It's like, can you outlast God? Can
And
you outlast his love?
absolutely. Well, particularly, I love this topic because it's so breathtaking. Because this is the essence of our design. We're created in the image and likeness of God, who is love, which means that is the essence of our design. And so,
Hmm.
how much can we resist being actually who we are for eternity? If God only had the next 10 years. Well, okay. But he has all eternity. How
Yeah.
much of the parts of me that are rebellious, and part of the healing that we have is the healing of our wills that say no to good things and yes to evil things. And
Hmm.
that's a healing issue that would say no to this God who adores me and yes to some sort of idol, or yes to some sort of self. I'm just going to, like,
Dig my
give
heels in and
for eternity. Like,
yeah,
good. I don't think it's going to happen. I do feel like this is where the love never fails. But, if
exactly.
God is all eternity, it may take a bit. And you know
Right.
what? If it takes a bit for all his kids, we're worth it, right?
Right.
How long
Yeah.
can Adolf Hitler, right, resist God is love when his original design was that? I
Yeah.
don't know, but how masterful is
And
God? Mhm.
you brought up a point. You said if God only had 10 years, then yeah, there'd be a lot of people that would be lost because
Right?
I do not believe God's going to violate anybody's power of choice, not the power of choice within. You know,
Mhm.
he may violate our power of choice outside a lot. I mean, like Jonah. Jonah didn't want to do the ministry in Nineveh, but God
Yes.
sent the fish, sent the storm, sent the fish, and
Right?
brought him back to Nineveh. So I mean,
And
those
he
are things that
he
happen
rebelled
to
in
us.
the fish, but,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah,
but internally, and this was even proven. It's like Jonah, he did the ministry, but he had an attitude about it.
he had a bad
And that was his own choice to have that attitude about it. And God had to deal with him in that as well. And he
Mhm.
deals with us in our own attitudes. And so, yeah, if he only had 10 years, there might be a lot of people that would be lost. However, he's not limited. And
He
that's the
is
beauty of
not.
it. Yeah.
And, and I see this so much when God, when it doesn't work with the front door, he's got 5 zillion back doors to go through, because he knows the intricacy of our design. And literally, he's working from the inside out, and so it's a heart melting issue, so that
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
will willingly yield, that we will willingly yield,
Yeah.
because it's this intoxicating, beautiful person, the person that you've always wanted, the perfect father, the perfect God, the perfect friend, the perfect spouse, the perfect, this person is what we're all just, we leap that way before we know it, because it's
Mhm.
what we've always wanted. And so it is very hard in our cynicism and the defilement that we've yielded to, and the darkness that we've yielded to hold out against that. I mean, people do a good job, but for eternity, I
Mhm.
just don't think
Yeah.
we're just all that powerful
Well,
that we can pull it off.
yeah, and there's 2 things that have to be dealt with there, and one of them, one of the main ones is the hurt and the baggage and the garbage that, we've gone through, that we've been hurt with, because we tend to, whether we even know it or not, we are hating ourselves and thinking ourselves unworthy because of things we've done or said or whatever, or been done to us in
Or
the
things
past.
that happen to us.
And
Yes,
God's got to
exactly.
work us through that. He's
Mhm,
got to work us through that to help us understand that He loves you no matter what. There is
mhm.
nothing you can do, nothing you could
Exactly.
do to ever separate Him from loving you.
Absolutely.
And
We are
that's
just
a lot
not
of
that
people don't.
powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's the
Mhm,
thing is we do have to remind ourselves, to we're not all that, it's like we're not all that powerful to resist God and think that we're going to mess up His plans, mess up, who He created us to be, or any of that. That
mhm.
that's a smaller, weaker God that I used to believe in, but it's the
Right.
message that's getting out now is there is an all-powerful, all-loving God, and He wins.
And when you think about that, when you think about if you have kids, there are times when they really resist you in ways that are very self-destructive. Yes, I want to run out to that street. Yes, I want to put my hand on that stove top, the hot stove top. I want to do it and all that kind of thing. And we, as loving parents, patiently redirect our kids all the time out of
Yeah,
love, for the purposes of love. And so, compared to a perfect parent, we're like little kids who have,
yeah.
who got our fists clenched and whatever. But what's interesting is that it really is the goodness of God that draws us to repentance. So what will melt that heart will be the kindness and the goodness and the patience that, that we would have long, like, drop kicked ourselves off the planet, right? And
Yeah, right, right. Yeah.
And he's there. It's like, no, let me just, can I hold your clenched fists? Can I hold them? It's just his kindness and his goodness and the beauty of who he is, because we are drawn to that. And eventually that's just it's the yielding, it's the melting of the will. And as love, he is relentless. I have a chapter in the book, in both in the original, and then I expanded it in the new book, Marked by Love, Revised and Expanded. I don't know if I said that, but I call it annoying, relentless love. And this is a
Mhm.
love that pursues when we're like, I don't want to hear you. I don't want to see you. You weren't there for me. Where were you when? And we hate him with everything we have because we think he's the problem. Um, and all of that. And he is in relentless pursuit. Even when we're, giving him the flying finger, we just do not have the power to have him stop loving us. And it's where we are the most despicable, that love matter in our ways of being. I'm not talking about in our true authentic identity, but in our ways of
Yeah.
being, where we've mastered that and done murderous, defiling, horrendous things. If we're not loved there, we're not loved.
Yeah.
And God, we're just not powerful to change his opinion of us, because he knows who we truly are. We're confused, but
Right.
he's
Yeah. We're the ones that are off base. It's not God. That
yeah,
that's a whole nother subject. We get so disappointed in God so often, and it's like, did he mess up, or did your expectations get in the way? A lot of people have been asking, what is the inner circle really about? The inner circle is probably one of the most in-depth plunges you're going to take into your own awareness and your awakening. It's a place where you're going to discover how to walk in love, joy, and peace that the Father has given to you already. It's about detaching and untethering from all the programming that has been given to you through your family, your school, your church, your country, your work, and so many other places. And it's a freedom and a liberation that most people never find. But we have found it, and we are delivering it, and we are blessing so many people by allowing them to find their path to freedom.
I'm not a person to exaggerate things. I was really wowed at the level of depth and my own personal breakthrough. It's just been truly a true path to transformation. That's my heart, is to go up higher and to transform in the soul areas where I get stuck and it doesn't look like Jesus. So I was really surprised from the get-go in my own experience of being a part of the group, how much I got immediately.
To be more joyful, more content, more confident, more connected to God, and hear God speak to you more clearly. Those are all good reasons to want to be part of this group.
We did a session where I got to be on, quote, the hot seat. And it really broke through some generational agreements. And I don't have a whole lot of manifestations emotionally or physically, but I can tell that my inner being is completely different now. And things that used to trigger me, they might trigger me, but I'm observant of it, and I don't respond to the trigger the way I used to.
Act now and join the Inner Circle mentoring groups. See you there.
And that's a really good discussion for us, because when we thought, I thought God, I prayed and, so-and-so died or whatever. And I had this expectation of how it was supposed to look like. And a lot of times we really need to go to the Lord. It's like, all of these things are promises in your word, or all these things are things that I prayed for in your answer, because God is not silent. What is my expectation supposed to be, and how am I to cooperate with you in this? Because we also have to realize other people's wills are involved. And so he's not going to strong arm someone else's will based on my will, even if it's for their good. And so we have to be, let him fill in the blanks. He's smarter than us. He's wiser than us. He's brilliant. And he's perfect love. And love sees 20/20. He sees all the variables that we don't see that are involved. And at the end of the day, it's really an issue of trust. God, can I trust you here? It may not look like what I would have written, but it's going to look like something redemptive and beautiful. And it may take a long game for that to happen, but it will happen because that's based on who he is.
Yeah, and my thing has always been learning to live with expectancy versus expectation, because if we put an expectation on something, we generally have one outcome that we're looking for. And if it doesn't happen, then we're often disappointed, versus having an expectancy. Now, you have to know God, and you have to know that he is love and that he has your best in mind. But if you can do that, if you can get to that place where you know that God loves you, without a doubt that he has your best in mind, then you can live with an expectancy that he's always going to do what's best for you. And I would, if I'm wise, which, we all kind of step out of that wisdom area every once in a while. We're not quite in our right mind, but when we're in our right mind and we understand, yeah, I would like to do the wise thing. Thank you very much. And that would be to live with the expectancy where, Father, I trust you. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but this is the direction you've got me going. I let go. I'm going to let everything go that, where I'm trying to control it and make it do what I want it to do. I'm going to let that go and flow with what you're doing and trust you. That's
That
hard
is
for a lot of people.
Oh, it's so hard because it's ultimately an issue of trust, and that loops us back into the thing of fear. God, can I trust you? And that means, and as perfect love, he casts out fear, but where we're not tracking with him, or maybe seeing him through some lenses that we're needing cleaned up in terms of what we're projecting onto God, of my abusive parent or whatever that is, or someone who disappointed me or whatever. And we project that onto God, or we project some sort of religious concept or some sort of Santa Claus or waving a magic wand, a gumball machine, you drop in the coin and out comes the gumball, a transactional idea of God. And that's where we get disappointed. But when we're in that place where we are relationally tracking with him as someone who is one with us, who always loves us, who's always leading and guiding us into all truth, and is masterful at his job, we can relax and just keep our hands open, but not try to control. And whenever there's control, think fear, right? When I have to control, it's because I'm afraid. So when I find myself doing that, and we all like, oh, I'm doing it, I'm trying to control. Okay, Jesus, I trust you. I'm going to relinquish this to you, because if you somehow can't pull this off, I don't know what I think I'm going to do. Right. And so, so that's beautiful how that happens, and living with an expectancy, because he is good. He is love. He is light. He is truth. That is who he is. So one way or the other, it's going to turn out good. And that's a good mantra to get in your head. One way or the other, it's going to turn out good because he's good. He's going to interweave it. Yeah.
And I can't help, but I got to say this. I feel like that, we're reading each other's materials and that we listen to each other all the time, which we don't. Well, I mean, I've read some of your stuff, you've read some of my stuff, but just the thread, I think, is a testimony to the fact of who God really is, that he's downloading this to you, to me, and thousands of other leaders who are sharing and teaching this, and then the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, that are finally starting to step into an understanding of how loving God is. It's wonderful. I kind of want to shift gears, unless if this topic doesn't resonate with you, then we can go other places. But one of the things I'm working with people on is there's a lot of Christians that are even advanced in the sense of understanding that God is love, but they're not happy. They're not full of joy.
Yeah.
And so, I've been working and sharing and talking about this a little bit more, and just trying to help people understand how that God has already done everything there is that needs to be done. It really comes back to us and what we're choosing, what we're looking at, what we're doing, and rather than blame God or anything else, it's like, if we're blaming God or anything else that's outside of us, it's like we have become deterministic. We have become a victim, because now it's up to God for me to be happy. It's up to everything around me. Everything's got to work out just the way I want it to in order for me to be happy. It's like, what's wrong with that picture? And I'll share some things, but I'm just curious what you've got.
Well, part of that is a maturity issue.
Mhm.
Because, and I think actually you were alluding to that anyway, so I guess maybe a different verbiage for it, is our maturity. Because um, in this place where we need all these situational things to come together in order to keep me happy, it's a very narcissistic view. And in our
Mhm.
development as children, we all go through a narcissistic phase. That's actually a developmental phase. The problem is when there's brokenness and you get stuck there, or parts of you get
Right.
stuck there. And so everything is defined in terms of you and what will make me happy, and you're here for me. And it's way lopsided. And a lot of that is what are the thoughts that we're thinking, that there's a taking thoughts captive and making them obedient to Christ, because there's so much to be happy and joyful about.
Mhm.
There's so
Mhm.
much. So an attitude of where we're in gratitude, we're looking for the things that are beautiful and blessings. And sometimes they're small, but there's so many that if you have eyes to see, it's everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere. And that allows you to develop a robustness and a fulfillment, and then also relaxing about the things that you don't have or you haven't seen yet. Because if I can't be happy, if I can't stay saved unless God does such and so, that's kind of bratty.
Mhm. Mhm.
Kind
Mhm.
of immature. And God never promised us everything, to go our way, or to get all of our fanciful wants. The deep desires that are of him, absolutely. How that walks itself out may be very different. There you have the expectancy versus the expectation. And so for us to be happy and fulfilled, I do think there's a lot in the culture that we have, in with all of social media, the things that we put is that we're constantly, it creates this dissatisfaction, like there's something better there. and
Mhm. Mhm.
and advertising tries to create a problem so it can solve
Programming.
it. You give them money,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so, and so this constant, I don't have versus, oh my goodness, what have we been given? And you just, you look around and
Mhm.
things can come to life, but that requires a humility and a willingness to kind of get past self. God wants us to love ourselves, but not be obsessed with ourselves, and not define everything in terms of ourselves.
That
And
is
that,
so good.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah, it's so good. So good. I mean, and that is a key, is for me, what I share and I teach is just practicing to step into your spirit and be able to sit with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit above everything, including yourself, to sit
Hallelujah.
above it all and to look down. And this is where I get almost giddy sometimes. It's just like, oh, wow, I've got a life.
Look at
I
that.
exist and I'm doing all these things. And just to really let that soak in for a moment, that you're here, you have a life. Now, some people may be going, but mine sucks right now. And I'm like,
Mhm,
part of that, I can
mhm,
almost guarantee you part of that, not all of some of it, yeah, absolutely traumatic
sure.
garbage happens.
Mhm,
But there's a lot of it, it's where it's just your preference, your expectations that you've placed on things. It's like you go to football game and it's cold outside, and so you're angry and frustrated because it's cold outside. Well, it's cold outside. So just accept that it's cold outside. It's one of those
right.
things where you begin to choose, what do you want to do? Do you want to live in the bad attitude? Or do
Mhm,
you want to step into a place where, hey, it is what it is? And, if it's hurting you, then yeah, I'll step out
mhm,
of it. But
mhm,
if it's just uncomfortable, well, we put so many conditions on our happiness and on our joy.
mhm.
And it's something to really pay attention to. It's like when you're unhappy in a particular area of your life, take a look at it and maybe talk with God about whether or not there's some things you need to let go of. Because again, I'm convinced that we can be perfectly happy, again, from the inside kingdom. We can be perfectly happy and full of joy all the time.
Absolutely.
even though the circumstances outside may be chaotic and even horrific at times, but we can still carry that joy on the inside.
Yeah, and that is the kingdom that is incorruptible. I mean, joy is a fruit of the Spirit. Well, when are we not one with Holy Spirit? When are we not one with Him? So that means we have inner access at all times. And it's not to condemn people if they're doing whatever, but we get obsessive and maybe just a little entitled, maybe just a lot entitled.
Right. I was going to say there's a few people that may be a lot entitled, and there's a lot of people that may be a little entitled.
Yes. Yes. And so really it's our attitude. And once again, this is conforming us into the image of Christ, because that fruit that looks like love, that's patient and kind, it does not envy, does not boast, is not proud, is not rude, on and on. All of that is actually who we are. And so in that is these attributes of patience. It's the attribute of long suffering, where you can have joy in the midst. And that is a transcendent value that is universal, is available to all, and is accessible to all. And so now if we're there with our fists clenched and you owe me and this and that, we're going to have problems, and you will be miserable, but you will be creating your own misery. And
Right.
that's why God corrects us as a loving dad where we need correction, because it's not good for us. He loves us that much. He's not going to leave us in ways of being that are not worthy of who we are. And that's going to require some maturity and as we're going on, but it's not punitive. It is developmental. And it's bringing out the polish on the diamond. It's bringing out, there's so many different metaphors that we can use, but it's bringing out who you truly are, who is breathtaking, just like the one who created you. And that, immature brats are not breathtaking. And particularly in adults, some of us, we need some sobering. We need to mature. We need to create. Oh, golly, I'm having such a crappy attitude right now. Just help me, Jesus. And this is where we get to repent. We get to, because we're so loved, and it's the goodness of God that's drawing us there. And the fastest way is through. So if God is nabbing me on my crappy attitude, my, entitlement, and my whatever, it's like, okay, yeah, I did that again. I'm so sorry. Help me. Right. And we just have to be very quick to yield and get agreement, and then be who we are. Which he created us as mature sons and daughters. It's the mature sons and daughters that are led by the Spirit. What is God leading in our development? And not just our comfort, and he's the comforter, but sometimes we need to receive his comfort in places that are really uncomfortable. And sometimes we can get very entitled, we can get very kind of soft, and that is not, we're also champions. And so he's going to develop us in that, not in a punitive way, not in a harsh way, but in a consistent way, because he's a great dad. And then we come out the other side something beautiful and breathtaking and life-giving to others. Because if I'm whining about all the things I'm unhappy about, this is not life-giving to you.
Right. Hey, in just a few moments, Catherine and I are going to move over to the deeper dive section, the behind the scenes part. It's an opportunity for you to go a little bit deeper with Catherine and myself. When you become a member of the deeper dive community on the Kingdom Talks Media website, you get access to conferences. I've got meditations over there that a lot of people have been blessed by and really has been transformative for them, as well as the behind the scenes sections. And it's helping to support the ministry and move things forward. So your help in this area is so, so valued, and we hope that you'll join us there. KingdomTalksMedia.com. What else is Father doing in your life right now that has really got your attention that maybe you haven't shared yet?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of transition that's happening in a really good way. It could be a fearful time. A transition just sort of professionally, and transition with just my kids and their development and the big changes that are happening there. And I am learning how to rest in the process that he's bringing, so that if things need to be stripped away in order to upgrade them, we were talking about this before, if things need to be pruned away, that, you know, my heart is really about him and what we're doing together, what I'm partnering with him about. So if something needs to go, I wasn't married to that. I'm married to my husband and I'm married to Jesus. And those are the non-negotiables. But in terms of what I'm doing in ministry or how it's looking or different things in my life, you hold it loosely, and you can afford to, because God cares about the things you care about. And particularly the people are the things that matter. And
Yeah.
so relinquishing that and relinquishing my need to control and jerry rig it and make it look like something, I he's really polishing up that ability to trust in whatever it looks like, and being happy and at peace and rest in that, where where it wasn't what I thought, but it's okay. I my thoughts are kind of up for grabs in terms of, do if this is not your if this is not an expectation I'm to have. And so a lot of times when I'm in praying, when something happens, say we get a health crisis or something, it's like, God,
Mhm.
how do you want me to pray here? What is this supposed to look like? Because it could look like a lot of different things, and just being able to hold that loosely and recognize that even the ministry with that's his. And I mean, he's given it to me, but it's like the baby that you steward, and it's, you hold it loosely,
Yeah.
and God gets to direct it into whatever it's supposed to be. And if that ministers to one person or a million, that's great.
Right. Just
That's
stay in your
exactly.
lane and do your part, and that's an issue is with us, is like you said, people tend to, we get to looking into other people's lanes and we start judging ourselves according to what they're doing versus just the lane that he's given. And I know for myself that there's times where I'll start doing that. I'll look around and like Father will just say, stay in your lane. And that is so relieving to me,
It is.
because when I can just turn around and just focus on what he's given me to do and
Mhm.
not think I've got to look like anybody else, so freeing, so
It is
free.
so freeing. It is so freeing, and I mean, it takes burdens off, and it takes this. I mean, Paul said that comparison is not wise, because either you come
Yeah.
out less than and you feel inferior, or you come out greater than and you feel superior. It's both. This it's just ditches of the same wrong thing.
Right.
So, where am I supposed to be developing? What is that supposed to be doing? Where am I supposed to be faithful?
Yeah.
And then leave the results up to God.
So
And
good.
right, and not letting um insecurities, like, oh well, I'm not doing that as well. Well, is something I'm supposed to do? Or maybe I'm doing my part, or I'm growing, I'm giving myself permission to develop,
Yeah.
um and standing in what really is true that God has given you, and being consistent with that. Because
Yeah.
that where are we going to show up on the planet and offer our greatest contribution? That is going to be a reflection of who we are, number one, in union with God. And then out of that are the byproducts of the things that we do. So your journey, I mean, your story is incredible, Gil. And I know I only know parts of it. But that came out of this place of this grappling with you, with traumas and things that happened, and that what that
Mhm.
meant for you as a human being. Who am I? What that means for my relationship with you. And out of that place where we can rest as a son and daughter, beloved, accepted,
Yeah.
all of that. And then the fruitfulness pops in how it's supposed to pop out, which is, it'll look different because my lane's
Yeah.
different from your lane, but
Yep.
it will be beautiful and
Yeah.
powerful and life-giving. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's a beautiful journey. And what I tell people now is I feel like I'm living a beautiful life because I simply am choosing to walk in the love and the joy that he's already given. It's just I've got to come in alignment and agree with it versus coming in alignment and agreement with, trauma and garbage and what the world wants to program me with and tell me that I've got to be this or that. But to be able to let all that go and begin to walk just in who I am,
Mm.
not concerned, not having my chain yanked by various things of the world, and that's part of what we're doing too in these groups that I've got is really looking at the programming. There are so many different things that all I got to do is ask everybody in the group, say, well, how'd your week go? And almost every single person, we can take their story from that week and say, now, do you see the programming in that story you just told? And do you need to be that way? Do you need to respond that way? What are some other ways to respond? Is it programming you want to keep? Is it programming you want to let go of? These are all choices that most of the time, if we're not aware, we're just not even, awake to the fact that you have the choices, but they are there.
And that's really true. And I think sometimes we limit our options because they have to look like something in particular. And and that leads to a lot of disappointment. That leads to a lot of offense with God. And where
Yeah.
we have been offended, and this happens, we need to keep really short tabs because sometimes it's sneaky. And so this is where we need to kind of keep short tabs with what we are looking at and what we are expecting and what we are thinking, because our emotional health is the fruit of what we're thinking on.
Right.
Paul said, whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy, think on these things. Okay. And so presumably if it's not that, we'll take that thought captive, make it obedient, because God is focusing on those good things. He is full of joy.
Yeah.
And then applying it. And we never outgrow this. That's not just a good scripture to learn in Sunday school and you get your little
Sticker.
sticker, gold star.
Yeah.
It's something that we need to apply. So we do need to be disciplined. That's not a striving, but we have to understand as a disciple means one who is taught, and in being taught and in being trained, this is taking those thoughts captive. And so what we're thinking is huge. That's where our choices, we get to choose. You can't choose what happens to you a lot. There's a lot of things beyond our control, but we can choose how we respond. And even say when our knee-jerk response is not good, we can choose to back up and kind of deal with the issues that are coming up, grapple with them, and then choose a life-giving, mature response that is worthy of who we are. And I like to couch it that way because sometimes we can get in this whole thought of being disciplined and all that, we can get a really negative connotation, a punitive connotation. But the connotation is that we are so breathtakingly beautiful in the image and likeness of God that as his kids, being less than that is not worthy of it. He's not doing it because we're bad. He's doing it because we are good. And so when we forget who we are and start acting in bad ways, sinful ways, he's the one that's going to correct us, because that's not worthy of us. And it's also not good for us, and it's not good for others. He gave us one commandment to love as he loves. And where we're violating that is where we're needing correction and growth. I like that so much because I can remember one thing. Now that one thing, to love as he loves, right? But it has a multitude of expressions. And this is where the relationship with God is so important because we talked, I mentioned a little bit like the wrath of God. And I'm not going to go into details, but that's actually an extension. It's a facet of love. So how do we understand that? And so understanding where we're violating love towards ourselves, towards others, is what helps us in the maturing process that we're needed, because we are all of that. We are champions. We can be champions of love. We can be famous for love. By this, the world will know that you're my disciples, that you've been trained and taught and following me, following the way of love, following the person of love and the ways that love is expressed, and how he wants to express that in unique ways through you and me. It's beautiful. And even so much more when we come together, because there's a synergism that happens when we come together.
And that's so vital in community, that everybody have a community where ideally you're loved, not judged, not condemned, but loved but also help to keep yourself accountable. I mean, because we all need that to a certain level. You know, I I don't necessarily believe in a hierarchy of people necessary to get to God. In fact, I would just say I don't believe in that. Everybody should have their own encounter and relationship with God and be receiving.
Mhm.
Now, how do you kind of deal with that when you've got a whole community and they're all receiving from God, but maybe they're getting different things? Well, that's where the community comes into a beautiful synchronicity to be able to come together, see how it fits or
Mhm.
how it doesn't fit,
Mhm.
and figure out what to do with it all. You
Mhm.
know, I'm still of the mindset, just take it and put it on the shelf for a while, or put it in the warehouse for a while, and wait to see if God doesn't bring it out later to show you how it fits. Don't need to throw it away,
Oh.
but you also don't need to try to apply it right now. But it's that beauty. I mean, think of how much stuff has just been lost and stuffed down
Mhm.
by either the individual who gets it or by people who, it's like, hey, well, you didn't take it through the Pope, so you can't have it. You
Yeah.
know, you can't think of that. You can't believe that. But no, how much has been lost where people had insight and downloads from God,
Mhm.
but they never saw the light of day for one reason or another because of the hierarchy. But doing it in community, you get to bring it out and everybody gets to work on it together.
And that's so beautiful because it comes out as a symphony that's greater than the sum of its parts. And and we get the joy of seeing others in their expression. See, this is
Yeah.
why it's so important to get our issues shored up where we've been hurt and the insecurities and all that. So we're not competing. That when I'm seeing you do your thing, I'm like, oh, man, that is a son of God. Isn't that breathtaking how he said that? That's incredible. I got to write that down and give him credit for it. And be excited about that rather than, well, that was sounded better than the one I said, right? You know what I mean? And these like, right? And we do that. We can do that. And particularly when you've had insecure leaders who always have to be the one like on top or have the
Yeah.
final word or whatever. And so
Mm.
this is what God is doing to heal us in community. And there's some healing that will not happen to us except through community.
Yeah.
And that's beauty. That's beautiful. And if people have been traumatized and hurt, it may take a bit, but God will do that because He's in community. Father, Son, and Spirit were in community before He created
Yeah.
anyone. And love exploded as a race of children that looked just like Him in their flavor. And so this is us learning how to operate as one, which is incredible. It's revolutionary. It's life from the dead. It really is. And when I see my kids getting along really well and loving what that does to me as their parent, it's like this is heaven, you know.
Yeah.
So when he sees us enjoying one another, loving one another, serving one another, coming low, but then there's a time when
Mhm.
maybe your part needs to come in and you do that. It's beautiful.
Just a flow.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that.
Well, we got about 6 minutes or so left. What would you like to share with everybody? And maybe one last time, your book, where is it at? If you got anything else coming up, and then whatever thoughts you want to share to wrap things up.
Sure, sure. Well, the book is Marked by Love, revised and expanded version, and I think I gave you the cover. So at some point, if you want to flash
Yep,
that up or stick that on the end sometime, so they know what it looks like. It's like a heart with a
I will do that.
with.
Oh, and by the way, all the information will be in the notes
Okay,
too. So just everybody and
great.
anybody listening, the information's in the notes. Go there, click on the links. You'll get everything you need. But yes,
Yes.
continue.
Thank you for that. So, and it'll be live depending on when you have this. It comes out on the 15th. So that will be available on Amazon. You can go to my website, catherinetoon.com. It has everything there. There's that for you. But my sense of what God really wants to do in the last couple minutes that we have, kind of the word that I was just sitting with it to hear like what's like a key that he wants. I heard the word don't settle. And I felt like in the not settling, it's not what we were talking about in terms like I've got to have, these things in order to be happy. That's not what he's talking about. It's the don't settle for less than who I've made you to be. Don't settle for less than what I'm leading you into. And so everything, when you show up in authenticity as who you are, there's always a chance of being rejected, right? So this is why we wear masks. So when God is wanting to remove the mask, literally unveil you, that's the word apocalypsis. It's the unveiling. The apocalypse is the unveiling of Christ, not the unveiling of end times disaster.
Right.
So, but when he wants to unveil you, that means you look like a breathtaking son and daughter.
Yeah.
There's no competition for you. So, which means when you manifest or are unveiled as a son, that actually creates almost like a backdraft for others to be unveiled and manifest in sons and daughters. And this is where creation is released from its bondage. This is where you show up in purpose. So your identity and who you are, that you don't settle for trying to be something because you feel like somehow you're inadequate or whatever. But this is doing the work maybe that God is leading you in to come with the fullness of who you are to the table as a settled, secure son and daughter. That actually is your greatest contribution. If you're not unveiled in who you are as a son and daughter, there's a hole in the universe waiting to be filled. Okay.
And the beauty of that is you get there by intimacy with Father. You get there by time with him. And you'll find there's a confidence in who you are. You'll find your own confidence in who you are, to where you'll realize you don't have to do anything to be in that position. You simply realize it's who you are. It's your identity. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place to be.
It is such a beautiful place, and there's no competition for it, right? Because you can be you. So which means, and you won't be disappointed. I think sometimes, but if I don't look like that, well then, or if my ministry's not this, or if this isn't the purpose you have, I'm so disappointed. That is, God knows exactly. He's crafted you for a purpose and a purpose to fit for you. They both fit. And so that is a discovery process and sometimes a healing process that we need. And so we don't settle for anything less. We don't settle to be a lookalike or a wannabe. There are things that I admire and I like, wow, I want to develop that, but I want to be me. And I want you to be you. I want to be able to enjoy you in the fullness of who God made you, because it is gorgeous. And when people arrive with that level of authenticity, unfortunately, it's rather rare. So people know it and they're drawn to you because you know who you are, but you're not lording it over people. You're being, how can I serve you and undergird you and love you and show up as me, right? And there's a perfect crafting and a place for each. So if I'm the cymbal, I'm not trying to compete with the violins. And if I'm, the bass, I'm not trying to compete with the oboe, but it all comes together perfectly. And it brings everybody's water level up higher.
So good. I love that. And, I think one of the signs that you're getting there to that place where you're really comfortable in just being who you are is that you're interested in other people in order to get to know them. You're not interested in getting to know them in order for you to have another friend or to have another gap filled. You just want to get to know them. And even in the process of getting to know them, you're really not in this, I like them, I don't like them. No, you enjoy everybody being who they are. Now, some people, unfortunately, I should say most people, probably all of us to some degree or another, we're not quite there yet. We don't know exactly who we are, but we're getting closer. And so we have to give everybody grace and mercy as we go on this journey, and just love one another and enjoy the journey together.
And that is so true. And be patient with ourselves in the process, right? That's another thing, because we are called to love ourselves in a healthy, balanced way. And so that means I'm patient with myself. It's like, oh, I'm just having a hard time getting this. That's okay. You probably are having a hard time, honestly, but you're making progress.
Yeah.
And God always celebrates the progress and the wins. And we're not looking for perfection. He is our perfection, and we're perfected in him, but we're looking for the fullness of what he's done in us, and trusting that to be expressed in a way that actually is perfect. But that's not us trying to be. We're not trying to do to be. We're just being. And that expression is what's life-giving.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Catherine, thank you so much. This has been awesome and wonderful. Now, we didn't talk about this, but I do want to do a deeper dive behind the scenes. Are you willing to stick around to do that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So everybody who's listening, go over to kingdomtalksmedia.com. And if you've already got a membership there, you can just log right in and continue watching the behind the scenes section. And actually, if you're a member, you also probably got this ahead of time. So enjoy it. And Catherine, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you on. It's been a blessing. And I look forward to the deeper dive. So
wonderful. What a joy. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Love you. Take care.